And I remember one of the things he said was he quoted Brian McNaught, who's from the fellow that did Dignity, you know. I don't know if I said this the last time, but Brian McNaught equated sexual abuse to what we experience as young people, as gay people. He says that when you grow up every day and you get the message that you are not okay, that this intrinsic part of you is in fact an aberration, a perversion, a sin, abominable. That in fact we're experiencing post-traumatic stress disorder every day as we grow up, in the same way that somebody who is sexually abused. And he says, many people who grow up that were sexually abused grow up to be sex addicts because of the stress and the post-traumatic stress disorder. And then I thought, wow, and what about the gay community then? You know, and especially in my own personal experience, because that has been quite a struggle for me, you know. So it's interesting that they're finally putting the two together, you know, that this thing about love and addiction are really kind of parallel, actually. You know, we don't think about that. Oh, I just love him. You know, he's just wonderful. And we don't think, you know, that we're sort of, it's a chemical thing, that we're on drugs, in fact. Not that I can't love somebody. Yes, we can love, certainly, you know. And in fact, that has been broken into 3 types of love, actually. And there's a Helen Fisher out of Rutgers that says that each type of love has its own associated neurochemical rewards, right? So, and she says, the aftermath of lustful sex is similar to the state induced by taking opiates. A mix of chemicals are excreted by the brain, including serotonin, oxytocin, vasopressin, and endogenous opioids, which is the body's natural equivalent to heroin. Wow. And I just thought he was good looking, and I thought I liked him. I didn't know about all this going on in my head. But I'll tell you, for a day and a half, I felt it, you know. And I had to look at it because it was the first time I noticed what was happening, because I'd met someone that I found attractive, right? So that's the first one, attraction, you know. Or the lust, that Joe Court would refer to the lust or the craving for sex with somebody, right? That desire to reproduce, you know, whatever it is. Plus all of the circumstantial things that make us attracted to whoever we're attracted to. And all of the things in our history and in our experience that make us want to do this special thing with this person, right? So this person has to look a certain way maybe, and or they have to perform a certain way, and we have to do certain things too in order for us to get to where we're hoping to go, right? So Joe refers to that as this lustful drive, as the call of the wild, right? And then the next level, of course, is just attraction. And this is actually what I think I felt when I met this fellow, and that is sort of what it means to hone in on a particular mate, right? And Joe refers to this as the call of the child, because this is where you start to negotiate all the hurts from childhood and see if you can actually work it out with this person and stick with it, right? And there are, obsessive thoughts about one's mate, feelings of exhilaration, sound familiar? Neurochemical characteristics of the manic phase of manic depression. In the brain, trying to get someone to love you back resembles OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. Romantic love seems to be more powerful than hunger, from the MRI scans and the studies that they're doing. So then the final stage, right? Long-term attachment. And then Joe would call this the call of the mild. And this is, where parents would cooperate to raise children, associated feelings of calm, social comfort, emotional union. And this is where benevolence would come in, right? And, I think I mentioned the last time I was here, benevolence actually excretes oxytocin, which is why when we do metta practice, the loving kindness practice for other people, it actually feels good for us. That feeling of benevolence is one of these reward chemical triggers, right? So it's not just a good thing for the others, but it also feels good for us. And so oxytocin is one of the big ones, and there are many. There's serotonin, there's dopamine. You know, these are all things that are happening. And I went to a brain science on equanimity here over at Spirit Rock just last weekend. You know, it's like there are so many neurons and synapses in the brain. There is so much electrical activity going on at any given split second, right? We just have no idea all that's going on there. And they actually, you know, they've just started to find out. Oxytocin is associated with touch, certainly, especially the skin to skin, but a good hug, you would get that feeling from it, or holding hands, certainly laying in bed with somebody. You know, orgasm, certainly we get it there. And then nipple stimulation, you know, for men and women. You know, it's sort of like evolution said, if we make it pleasurable, she'll feed her young, and then the genes and the DNA strand will survive, right? This is, you know, we think we're attracted to someone, but actually our DNA is saying, hey, you need to replicate. We need to keep going here, right? We want to be around another 100 years from now, right? And they say actually oxytocin for grandparents, that when the grandkids come in the room, all they have to do is come in the room and the grandparents experience this high from oxytocin, because they see their job is done, that they've procreated, and yet there's even another generation, and so they get the reward from that, the bonding reward, right? Then the other thing that excretes oxytocin is uniform dancing, you know. So it was like, I remember, you know, the days till God knows what hour of the night, you know, with the mirrored ball and the disco, you know, etc. We didn't need the poppers, really, you know, that we had. It was already going on, you know. And the benevolence is, again, another way that oxytocin is triggered. And then the last one, last but not least, is imagining any of the other five, right? So here we have what? The porno industry. You know, it's sort of like just imagining any of those other five will release oxytocin in your brain. So, that's a lot, huh? And what's my time like?
You've got until 25 minutes.
Okay, I'm good.
You've got 20
We're good.
minutes.
We're doing excellent. So, you know, as I was saying before, I don't see the Dharma and desire as a duality. I think they're both a part of our human experience, right? It's not one or the other. It's not the sun or the clouds. It's the sky that holds the both, right? So, it's been a while now, but I was in Nepal several years ago, and there was a gay man who ordained and is living at a Tibetan monastery in Kathmandu there. And he said, I want you to meet someone. I had hooked up with him through another friend, you know. He said, I want you to meet someone. And he actually took me to meet Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche, who was very old at the time, has since passed, you know. What a sweet experience it was. You know, this was the first teacher of the current Dalai Lama when he was a boy. This was his first teacher. And he, you know, we did the blessing. It was just a wonderful moment. And so it was after having met him, and I didn't really know who I met, you know, but after I started to do some of reading, because he's done a lot of writing, just very scholarly. And he says, some people live closely guarded lives, fearful of encountering someone or something that might shatter their insecure spiritual foundation. This attitude, however, is not the fault of religion, but of their own limited understanding. True Dharma leads in exactly the opposite direction and enables one to integrate all of the many diverse experiences of life into a meaningful and coherent whole, thereby banishing fear and insecurity completely. Integrate all the many diverse experiences of life into a meaningful and coherent whole.